All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. So as Annie says, for the next, how long have we got? 40 minutes. We will be talking about this question about should we be connecting tech and not connectivity. And I think it should be a very interesting panel because we've got some differing points of view on the panel today. So I'm going to start off by getting my panelists to introduce themselves. Now, why don't we start with you, Terje, and then we'll move around with Suzanne next, and then Muslim for those of you who might have missed Muslim's presentation. So Terje, why don't you go first and maybe tell us a little bit about why this topic is of interest to you.
Yeah. No, thanks, Amy, and thanks for inviting me. So just to introduce myself, I'm heading up the global network architect team in Telenor Group. So that is then we are responsible for all the network domains, starting from the base stations to the cloud, to the transport, to the mobile core, and setting directions for all the 8 operations in Telenor. And then I'm also heading up something we call the 5G readiness program, which is not only looking at that technology, but also looking at the commercial aspect around 5G. And where we actually in Telenor have defined what we call a 2-track approach to 5G. So the first track is more like 5G is a natural evolution of 4G. Meaning that we are basically staying within, or options to stay within the same business model and operating model. But then the second track of 5G, what we have defined is exactly what we are going to talk about in this session, on what other things which is triggered then coming from the market perspective, technology perspectives, and also the partners perspectives. And that's why I find these discussions very intriguing, and happy to share some views on from that on our side.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, we'll look forward to understanding how you guys balance between those 2 tracks that you're working on to make sure you can serve them both well. So Suzanne, I know you come from a different perspective. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Amy. So my name is Suzanne Tracy, and I'm the CTO in SIRO. So SIRO is a joint venture between Vodafone, the main telco company in Ireland, and ESB being the electrical supply company, which is state-owned. So ultimately, the objective of SIRO is to utilize the state, the electrical asset, the poles and the ducts of the electrical network to roll out a fiber network. So we're sharing the carrier infrastructure. It's not a shared wire as such. It's a fiber line on the electrical infrastructure. So that's the objective of SIRO. Also, we are an open access wholesale only business. So we don't sell direct to the customer, but we do have up to 19 retailers on our network at the moment, and we've the majority of the tier 1 operators, and then a lot of smaller Regency based retail operators as well. So that's the kind of construct of the organization. When we set about, we're probably just coming out of startup phase now. We're in our 6th year of network rollout. 2 years of that obviously haven't been through COVID. So we can't really call ourselves a startup, but we do have the lucky advantage that we don't have any legacy. So we only have a fiber network. We're not dealing with mobile. We're not dealing with any older copper or any older technologies. So that is a huge benefit and advantage to me, having had 20 years in telecoms. So I understand acquisition and trying to merge networks quite well, and the difficulty and IT systems equally. So then for my role, what the CTO in SIRO does, I mean, ultimately my first kind of key objective is to identify the pipeline. So where will we build? Then, we identify the pipeline, we survey it, and we plan our build program. And supporting that, obviously, then is the IT infrastructure. So the OSS, BSS, again, new organization, new stack, not too much legacy, good, clean system, very kind of cleverly designed APIs into retailers, real time, linked to so your order management is linked to your configuration and to your active network and your whole provisioning process. Our network management, then I obviously run the network. So we have a knock offshore through Vodafone. And also then I would look after all of our customer connections. So we do the customer install on premise on behalf of the retailer. And that ultimately gives me responsibility end to end from a technology perspective. So design, build, and operate. If it's not working on the doorstep, I have to understand why. So it's very much an end-to-end ownership model, and it tends to work well. But obviously, on top of that, we're trying to sell our products. So we have marketing, we have external affairs, we have all of the normal structures and setup. But it's very exciting. It's an exciting role, even though Ireland as a market is quite small. And I suppose the other point is that there was no alternative. There was no other wholesaler in the market before SIRO started.
All right, great. Well, excellent. So we know what point of view you're coming from, and I think that we'll probably get your perspective, obviously, as a maybe starting up on your no legacy networks, and maybe some lessons from your experience there. But also, I guess in this perspective, we may see you as a partner to some of the other panelists.
Yeah, or a consumer.
So, yeah, or consumer. So for those of you who were not here for Muslim's presentation just before, maybe you can do a quick intro to yourself as well, Muslim, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Amy. So big up myself. Vodafone is well known. I'm a principal architect at Vodafone, design authority in, let's say, solution design for our business enterprise customers in all kinds of verticals, and driving forward, let's say, the evolution of business models and solution models for, let's say, covering the whole spectrum with mobile, with cloud, with security. So that's what I do on my daily basis. And also I drive forward the, let's say, evolution of ecosystems and models with different SDOs like ITU, Etsy, IEEE, where I'm chairing some of the groups. And for me, the eventual, let's say, or the ultimate goal is to keep a balance between the business and technology side, and together in conjunction to really, let's say, make them come together in the best form to offer, let's say, a sustainable value-added offering to customers. And that's why this panel is also very relevant to what I strive for in my daily business. And to keep it brief, I'll just keep it here and then let you dive into the discussions.
Yeah, well, wonderful. We'll hear from all of you again because you guys are here to talk, not me. So, I mean, when I first look at this topic about connecting tech and not connectivity, what it makes me think is, is this tied up with the question of telcos are becoming techcos? And what is a techco? Does it matter? Is being a techco really about serving your enterprise customers with sort of what you were talking about, your second track, Terje? Or is becoming a techco also about the first track and delivering the connectivity? I'm curious to see how you see it across those two different sides of what you're doing at Telenor.
Thanks, Amy. So if you allow me a bit slack here, so I would say that it's not, in my head at least, it's not either or. So a telco and a techco, I think you need to build on each other's strengths in a way in different roles. And if you allow me also to elaborate a bit on the three perspectives on a techco, just to illustrate this example. So the way and these three perspectives are coming from. The first one is on what the customer is asking for. The second one is on an internal way of running the business, and the third one is on partnering. And then I think Muslim actually walked through a couple of those items in the presentation. So I will offer my view on top of what he presented. So starting with the first ones, so we see a telco or a techco. And to be honest, I don't really mind the label. It's more the business. It's more what we actually are providing. So the first perspective, as I said, is the customer view. And actually, as a techco, we are also, and as a telco, we want to allow for connecting any kind of device. Not going to be picky in terms of whether that's a smartphone or any kind of sensors or a camera or a TV or whatever. So connecting any kind of device, I think, is one of the criteria. And then the second part of it in the customer dialogue is that you are allowed for any kind of digital interaction with the customers, implying all kind of self-services. And the mindset you are doing that is to come with more a menu on where the customer can personalize or customize to some extent what are the important things and choose the different components and then making that happen. And that's.
I wonder if I. So sorry, I just wanted you to expand on that a little bit. The sort of modular service. Does that come with are you prepared to offer that at the moment?
let's, if you allow me 2 minutes, I will come back to that.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No worries. The risk is that we see this is actually happening as we speak and this comes across a number of market segments. It's not only the B2B, but it's also on the consumer side. These requests, but definitely, as you say, also on the industry 4.0 or the enterprise market. So they definitely needs to or they want to pick and choose in a way on the different components and they want to what fits their need in a way. And actually, to be honest, some of the enterprise customers, they have, in particular in the public sector, they have their own access network, for example. So they prefer to use that, but maybe come to us on services. So all these kind of combination of service components they are asking for. Just to back on what you're raising, Amy, as one example on what is the customer actually asking for and then of course security, operations, and all those aspects which we also are referring to as service components, which then allows for different levels of functionality, if you want. So that's the customer perspective on why we think techco or evolved telco would be one of the things we are looking into, and actually the way we are advancing ourselves. Then secondly, on internal motivation, which we are probably coming back to later in session as well, but it starts with embracing all new technologies. That could be like automation, for example, and automating the processes. I think, if I remember correctly, the latest number in Telenor, we have passed more than 60% of the technical processes are automated across all the 8 different countries in Telenor. But it's not only technical processes. You have to automate on the customer front and also even on the finance and HR areas to really comply with this. And compared to what Suzanne explained, we are not a legacy. Sorry, we have a lot of legacy. We are not starting on greenfield. So that's, you can just imagine what the challenge is actually to automate with a lot of legacy systems and legacy processes in that sense. But it's not only automation. It's about embracing cloud. It's, of course, there are quite a few things coming with 5G and this 5G standalone. There are quite a few things there as well. It's not only on technical side, it's also the way of work, upskilling, competency, cross-functional teams. So that actually when you are engaging with an enterprise customers, you have to mobilize not only the salespeople, but also on the technical people to really get engaged with the customer dialogues. So that's collapsing a bit on the architecture, the organization, if you want, on that side. Then the third part, which is more the ecosystem or the partnership, meaning that we believe that we cannot deliver all the service components ourselves, or we should not deliver all the service components ourselves. We will get quite a few of these components from various partners. And that putting those together, we will actually then deliver what the customer is asking for, either in the consumer market or a consumer segment or on the business market. So that's the kind of the belief what we are thinking at TechCo is. And then it's not going to be, a change from one day to the next day. It's going to be a gradual evolution, and then we have to take it step by step across all these different areas. So I'm not sure, Amy, if I'm really responded to the question, that at least was on the tempo on explaining the 3 perspectives, and that there are quite a few initiatives which goes into this to transform ourselves more into the TechCo direction. Yeah. But again, the label is not that important. It's more the reality and where we are and what we are delivering, which is important.
Yeah, so it's really the change, and making sure that you're in the sense, it's not should you be offering connectivity or should you be offering something else? It's really, how are we working within our organization, with our customers and with our partners, that defines the difference between, let's say, a legacy telecoms operation and what you're aiming for, or what you're changing your organization for.
No, exactly, and we say that rather than we are not leaving connectivity, that it's rather opposite. We are rather building on the strength of the connectivity to add more service components, and in reality, what we see that doing it in this way is actually also strengthening the connectivity core business. So it's important not to forget about that. You can actually, and that's back to the two track story as well. You see that both of these 2 tracks need to be pursued, and they are strengthening each other. So there are synergies, but they're also coming with a much stronger offer to both the partners and also to the customers.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I wonder, Suzanne, you're coming from another side of the business. Does this resonate with you as you're starting up a greenfield operator? How we interact with our customers, how we interact with our partners. Do you feel that it's different than, in your previous life in a different telecoms operator? Would you qualify SIRO as a tech co by Terje's definition?
Well, I suppose I do agree with Terje that I think the label is probably less relevant, and actually both labels apply. So immediately I would say that we're a telco, we're a telecoms company. I'm working in telecoms. But having, when you think about it and when you try and see what is the definition of one over the other, I mean, clearly we're enabling connectivity. We're building a fiber network, a fully fibered network. So that is pure, in its pure sense, it's connectivity, it's transmission, it's taking data, it's taking connectivity from one point to another. But when you look at what the thinking is, like what is a tech co, it's really where you're using data to drive decisions. And absolutely, we're using data to drive decisions for our own, to develop our own organization. And yes, we have the advantage that we've no legacy. So we started quite recently. But ultimately, from a very base, from the very kind of early inception, every town that we go to build, the first thing we do is we assess the electrical infrastructure to understand if it's overhead or underground, how much build is going to happen. Like, we can actually model out the estimated cost to build. So whether, if there's a lot of poles, do the poles need a lot of prep work? That's going to take time. So we're all the time taking data points into our decision making. So from that perspective, to enable us to be as tuned and as sharp as we can in our delivery, I would say we would fall into the tech co. And equally, we're able, the service that we provide to our retailers, they are able to sell multiple services. So we provide TV, internet, voice, and whatever other alarm systems, whatever other system is put on that network. The other point, I suppose, that's a little bit different for us as a wholesaler, we don't take the customer traffic to the internet. So we're a layer 2. So we're a little bit behind. We're a step back. So we interlink to the retailer's network, and the retailer takes the customer to the internet. But ultimately, the retailer applies the application layer and the various different applications. But at that point, then, for SIRO, we need to understand we've got a really valuable asset in our network. How do we ensure that we're not giving it away as such, and that we understand how to productize it as well, beyond what we're doing at the moment? Absolutely, it's quite, I mean, you come across the same thing all the time. Is 5G going to replace fiber? One needs the other ultimately. So it's they're absolutely complementary. But as 5G rolls out, and as the ever growing demand for services increases, we also have to make sure that we're in there and that we're getting the correct slice of the pie. And that we're not too naive and too eager. Like, we're very focused on our rollout, on our build, and we're very focused on connecting end customers. But we also have to understand the value of the asset that we're building and make sure that we're not losing out there. So I've probably moved off your original question on the telco.
That's all right.
But I think ultimately we're both.
Yeah.
We're wearing both hats, and we have to. And we have to keep looking at the data, and we have to understand, even from retailer perspective, why one town or city is performing better than another. What's the demographic? We're all the time using sources of data.
Yeah, definitely. There's one thing that I want to pick up on there, which I think that Terje, you sort of touched on a little bit, and you've touched on a little bit too, Suzanne, is this idea of, how you balance out the value chain. What bits are you willing to let go of, and what bits do you need to hold on to, and how do you manage that, right? And so I want to, Muslim, we haven't quite heard from you yet. So I want to see if you first, do you agree with Terje's perspective that there are some bits that you're willing to let go of? And sorry if I'm misquoting you, Terje, I'll let you reply afterwards. But, how do you see this panning out? And, you talked a little bit in your presentation about, doing a revenue share with your partners. I'd be very interested to hear you expand on, what does that look like in practice? It's very difficult to understand.
Yeah, sure. So first, I would like to build upon what both Terje and Suzanne said. They both said very interesting and largely, I would say, true things, because I do agree that, I fully agree with Terje that, of course, as a telco company, you have to, as I mentioned in my keynote, you have to be really in full control and in full, let's say, in the front of your connectivity. It should be perfect. You should have a very strong underlay, and then on top of that, you can then go push into the space of work and revenue to build service on top of that. Of course, moving from telco to techco doesn't mean stopping to become a telco. And it doesn't mean that we are going to be from Vodafone, going to be the next Microsoft or Amazon, or that's not or any hyperscaler. It means that, let's say, as Terje said, building upon your space of connectivity and the underlay, if you want, which is advanced connectivity, and adding on top of that in the stack, pushing in that space to really maintain your share of the work and the revenue. And also everything that's happening around today, it's already pushing for that space. For example, if you think of network slicing and standalone 5G, what we talk about. So when the core of a 5G end-to-end chain, when the core part becomes suddenly software-based, which is the standalone 5G core, and suddenly you have, let's say, I don't know, a couple of thousand types of services in the 5G core, then you have already, let's say, a flood of software, which is then, let's say, the glue over your network, which you have to work with to provide your services. So the dynamics are there, and that's why I agree both with Terje and Suzanne. To your question, Amy, so about which bits and pieces one could relinquish and which ones you should clinch onto, and how to really shape that. I think that the way to, let's say, to clinch onto something is to really be best at it, you know. And when you relinquish something, it means that there's a partner that you can't beat, and you better become, let's say, their partner, work together with them. So it depends on what is your strength. So for example, if you as an operator are able to build, let's say, a federated catalog of services where you put in, let's say, several modules, of course, you can partner with companies which are, let's say, pure techco, like, I don't know, Tata or Infosys or any other company.
Well, the systems integrators.
Exactly, but doing what they are best at, that doesn't make sense. So you really define what I call the demarcation, as I talked in my presentation. So up to what point you want to push in that space, and where you stop and let's say meet or demarcate, or where's the limiter with your partner, that all depends on what is your strength, how good you can become. And of course, in becoming good and going up the stack, you have to leverage upon your telco, which is the connectivity and stuff. So that's why you can go not all the way up the stack, but to some extent. And that then depends which partner do you meet with and what are they best at up to one point. So it's like a alignment process, which finally settles at some point. Yeah.
But in this, and I think that this is exactly the crux of the question. But I'm curious to know from your perspective, if you're happy to say from Vodafone's, what is Vodafone's USP? What is the thing that you want to hold on to, and what is the thing that you're happy to partner on?
Good point.
Obviously, you sort of alluded to working with the systems.
No, not at all. I'm happy to let's say give you a high-level insight on this. So first of all, we are moving towards, let's say, becoming a platform-based provider, meaning that on top of your wonderful connectivity, whether it's IoT or any kind of slicing, on top of that, to become really a platform-based service provider, meaning that we can offer flexible services. And our USP is that in this, let's say, platform-like economy that we strive for, or service platform that we strive for, our strength is, for example, in machine-to-machine IoT. We have our GDSP, Global Data Service Platform, which is the biggest M2M platform in the world. We are building, let's say, applications and packages because in that space, it's a lot of techco besides, let's say, telco. So there are aspects where we are really, let's say, leaders, and that diverges into different spaces like wearables, like all kinds of 5G automated use cases, with drones. So IoT and machine-to-machine is a space where we're already acting partially as a platform service provider, where we still have partnerships, of course, because you have a specialized vendor for flying drones, for example, or for doing farming. But that space we already are pushing into, so we already are a techco player in that space, in M2M and IT. But other verticals and other aspects, we are still, let's say, evolving, I would say. That's why there are some lines or some spaces where we are, and this is one of them.
Okay, so it's still a horizontal play. It's related to IoT. That's where your ISP is. I mean USP. And I mean, so Terje, I mean, from your perspective, tell me if I quoted you right when I said you're willing to let some things go, and where you stand on this. What do you think Telenor's USP is? And I know that your CTO spoke this morning. Maybe you can reshare some of that for us, for those who missed it.
Yeah, no. So I think because "let go" is a bit of a dangerous phrase, I think. So I have not used that. I don't think she used that statement either. But it's more like how can we, build on the strong business what we have, and it's rather coming from that building on the strength and adding value to the customers and the partners in that perspective. I think that's the message and that's the perspective what we have. But at the same time, just to try ourselves to move closer to SIRO, for example, we also need to phase out very forcefully legacy. So we need to get rid of, for example, 3G networks in many of the countries. The copper is out. So it's also we have to be very forceful on simplifying our business in that sense. So those kind of things we very happy to let go, if I may, Amy. But it's probably not on the topic what you're asking. But I think the key point is what Muslim was raising. The approach we are taking is that we are approaching this as a modular, or we call it unbundling or modular, delayering, whatever. Again, the label is not really important. It's more the principle, and allow for that some of the modules can come from partners. I think Muslim explained a couple of examples there, and just also the justification. So the question, of course, is that why, if we are sucking, doing one of these models, and there are other partners doing it much better, why should we collaborate with those partners and provide a better service to the customers in that sense? And that's so important that we actually allow for that kind of focusing on the real key points of the business areas. Then of course, before we are jumping into bed with everyone, you have to be also take a long-term perspective or strategic perspective of this, because the landscape of these partners is very dynamic. So you need to keep an eye on what's going on and what kind of acquisitions, what kind of geopolitics comes there, and so on. So there are a lot of parameters which are also influencing this. But one of the key elements of what we are not going to let go, if I may call it like that, is to the customer dialogue and the customer relationship. So it's so important to stay close to the customers, to understand what are the needs and how we can help to solve their needs in that sense. So that's clearly some of the things we are not. But then again, we are not letting go of the core business either. We are rather building on that. So that's the perspective we have on this.
I mean, I think it's interesting because obviously maybe my terminology is wrong, but maybe work with partners is the words that I should be using. But clearly, SIRO is a partner at one end of the value chain that Vodafone is relying on in Ireland, right? So there are some things that SIRO is there because it's evident that the incumbent is not serving that need, so someone else needs to serve it, right? So in that sense, there are some things, but I think that the customer story is where I'm really interested, because you say we are not going to relinquish our relationship with the customer, but do you think that there's any need for who the customer is might shift over time? And so you're not necessarily, as Muslim already says, you can't own that relationship with every vertical customer. You do not know their needs. So what is the customer relationship that you are prioritizing over the next 5 years?
No, and that's a brilliant question, of course, and probably $100 billion question, I guess.
You tell us, and we can all learn.
Who are the customers, and what do they really want? I think that's probably what we are all, many of us are looking into. But you are fully right. I think the customers are different. So it's not one type of customers. And of course, if you think about consumers and enterprises, they are very different. And if you talk about retailers, they're also different in a way. But coming from the telco perspective, we have been working with these kind of customer segments for decades. So that's customer segmentation and the specter of customer demands is not really something new only for or within the telco model. Of course, this is much more diverse when you talk about telco, which there are a lot of different actors and demands as well. But again, you need to relate to a number of different types of customers, exactly what you're saying, Emmy. And that's a reality we have to allow for. And that's back to that. Can we then approach this? And I think also Muslim was raising that. Can we approach this, by thinking more like a menu with the modularity and then allowing the customer not to predefine what category they belong to, but allowing them to select and rather coming from that perspective, because it's also very important for us that we are what you call benefiting from the scale. So we're not lost in the different customer cases or whatever. So that's part of the story, Amy. I'm probably trying to escape from what you're raising, but
it's an interesting perspective, and I'm going to paraphrase. You're evading the question because you're not saying which customer group you think may emerge as a new one. You say that your tactic is rather to make it easy for the customer to select whatever is going to be valuable for them. And maybe, as Suzanne says, as you build up, as you're analyzing the data, you may see the customer groups emerge and learn to serve them. Now I wonder from...
Yeah, if you allow me, can I maybe 1 minute, just an example where we are. I'm not saying this is a general applicable example, but we were thinking, health sector is maybe a type of customers, and then we're engaging with one health region in one of the countries, and they say that okay, we're going to build a hospital, a brand new hospital, and we want to be autonomous connectivity. So everything needs to be on the campus, and that needs to be indoor coverage, and there needs to be support, everything to run the hospital. Everything needs to be again on the campus. And then we're thinking that, okay, this is probably, the health sector. It's a vertical, that's the solution, what we can do. And then we engage with another health region, same country. And they say that, no, we're not going to build in the hospital. We would rather serve the patients wherever they are, whether they are in the home, go shopping, driving, whatever. So even, within the same health sector, same country, even the customers there are different. And it's so important then to recognize that and not get lost in different categories and buckets from the customer side.
Yeah, and I think the segmentation is, maybe the vertical is not what you want. It's more in terms of how they are using the services that you're providing. Now, Suzanne, you're obviously maybe a little bit more targeted than the other two in how you're thinking about your customers. I wonder what your thoughts are as we've been talking over the last few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose the first thing is the retail. We have 19 retailers, so we don't actually own the relationship with the end user or the end customer. But because we do the install, we're very close to it. So I think it's really helpful. Like we're doing the speed tests, it's a really, really, really good way for SIRO to stay on top of our performance and ownership. And so we're managing that. And we're managing the whole appointment process, and the connections and the cancellations and the second visits and all of that. So it gives us a really good understanding of. But ultimately, what we see again at a very base level, our retailers, where they want us to help them with their customers is on the in-home experience, right? Mm-hmm. So and the product set for that, as opposed to applications and different, and that's at the consumer level. Then we also have enterprise. We've a lot. Our enterprise market is really only starting to grow now as our network is expanding. But I think, back to what your point earlier, and you mentioned it to Muslim. So obviously Vodafone, we have two shareholders, Vodafone and ESB. So we utilize the assets of both. Mm-hmm. Vodafone would deliver our IT, OSS, BSS stack. So we're a customer of Vodafone's from an enterprise perspective, but equally they're our anchor tenant. So Vodafone was first. The electrical company wanted to utilize their asset. They went to tender. And Vodafone won the tender. That's how the partnership formed. So they were looking for a telecoms partner. Mm-hmm. Vodafone was the first. So most of our customers in the initial early days are Vodafone customers. So we're providing the service back to Vodafone. So it's a constant cycle, and we're interfacing with different parts of the organization.
Mm. And are you feeding data back and forth between Vodafone and yourself? And what kind of data are you sharing? How do you, do you need to get data about the end customer from Vodafone?
So obviously, we would take customer data because we're following through on the appointment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're an agent in that perspective. So we're providing the service to the retailer customer.
Yeah.
But equally, then that order starts at the front end in a Vodafone's in the retailer system, and then it comes through to ours. So the IT capacity and efficiency. So there's obviously that's generating information as well.
Yeah. And does that work well? Because I feel like, Muslim, I'm going to come back to you in a second, but obviously you gave us some examples of interfacing between different telecoms operators and, making systems work smoothly. I mean, Suzanne, in your experience, is this working smoothly? Are the back ends of your side and your retailer sides integrating well?
Yes, I would say they are. I think, again, I have the lucky advantage that it is pretty much, it was brand new. It was purpose built. So then the APIs back to retailers, they're new as well. So we do have that advantage. But we do see, obviously, with different retailers, so some also have partners and service integrators and system integrators that are brands that we would recognize in the market that are not obviously the retailer. It's not the retailer brand, but it's their partner. So we see there's a whole ecosystem of partners, and that's just on the IT and the order management on the provisioning side, but ultimately in rolling out the network. And back to Terje's point and modular. So I would say that we might have made the mistake that we outsourced too much too soon. No one knew how to roll out a fiber network on an electrical infrastructure. We outsourced too soon and we had to learn together. So then we insourced it a bit more, took ownership to understand it, and then kind of got a little bit more controlled and modular about it and understood and started to build up skill sets. So you can match the profile of the work to the skill set. And that gives you a different return. So I think we're all the time kind of building those partnerships. And one last point: when we were starting our rollout, there was no competition in the market. We were the only. We were new. We were shaking up the incumbent, and we were the only operator rolling out a fully fiber network. Today, the government are sponsoring a rural rollout. The incumbent has responded significantly, and then there's other players. So the resources and the partners that we have had over the last number of years have a lot of work in front of them, and they can pick and choose. So the competition isn't just about getting the customer, the connection to install. It's about holding the resources you need. And the skills that you need to actually to hold your rollout plan. Because equally, we're a wholesaler now. So if we slow down, the retailer is going to sell it to wherever it's available. At the end of the day, they have to follow the numbers. The attention span is quite short, and we have to be very aware of that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, generally so far, I think the takeaway is that you have to talk about connectivity and the tech, because the tech is essential for making the connectivity work. But I want to come back to you, Muslim, because you gave some great examples in your presentation about how you were sort of making the back-end technology work for an ecosystem environment. But I feel like ultimately, that doesn't mean anything to the end customer. They're trying to achieve an outcome that this is powering. So I wonder, from your perspective, if you can take us from that the kind of partnerships that you were discussing, and the outcome that enables at the end, and how you get from the A to B, or how they're interlinked.
Yeah, sure. So this is actually what we call the customer story. So, for example, it starts the reverse way. So first of all, what I showed maybe is what you need to build to enable that, what the customers are looking for. But how it really comes into existence is that, first of all, we talk to customers, we see what is the added value they're looking for. Then we go backwards from those business requirements down to technical requirements. And then from there, we build, let's say, the systems, the tech ecosystems that enable this. So the real journey is, let's say, starting with the customer and then going back. And then if you want to, let's say, pick up on all the examples that I mentioned, and then to take you in the other direction, let's say. So, for example, when you want, as a user, to have a very low, let's say, energy utilization on your mobile phone, you want to have optimal roaming, very low bills, you want to have smooth experience, and you want to have, let's say, all this kind of let's say feature sets, and you want to have the optimal usage of your, let's say, volume of your subscription. So you need excellent coordination among, let's say, operators for a complex roaming scenario, where then they are able to, I mean, the data, telco data space and the data sharing scenario that I showed in the keynote today. That's an example how, let's say, starting with the customer KPIs in the front part, you go down and you boil it down to how do, let's say, 2 or 3 CSPs or operators collaborate. What data do they need to share among each other in order to find the optimum, let's say, way of providing this best experience to the customer, to keep his bill low. So this is, let's say, the way that that the thinking should go. Yeah. But
I mean, if I'm
sure.
turning that into, me as a consumer, I'm using my mobile phone. It's, if you were making that pitch to me, you're saying, Amy, do you want to, feel like your 5G connection is really fast, or do you want to feel like your call connect time is fast, or what is the thing that I am feeling that I can understand as a consumer?
Good point. So if I'm talking to you and you are I'm the lucky one to have you as my consumer, my subscriber.
Yeah.
I would say to you that if you want to be free of any, let's say, worries and roam over different networks, being our subscriber, and let's say have optimal usage of your data volume in your subscription, of your, let's say, keep always a balanced level of quality, and not worry about your bill growing, and not worry about any kind of impact.
That's the one that's getting me. I'm going to roam and it's not going to charge me $1 million, and it's going to be a fantastic experience.
Your experience is smooth, your bill is not spiking up, and you're not really, you can only focus on being, let's say, the user, the customer, or enjoying, and all the other things being handled in the background, optimized, let's say, to this is actually the ultimate goal. And this is, let's say, the kind of language, or almost the language, that is what really, let's say, tickles the good nerve on the customer side, and that's let's say the business or the customer side of the story, exactly. And then it goes down all the steps to build this model that enables that. Yeah.
Well, I think that we all underappreciate how difficult it is to make a telecoms network work. But I think with that customer view, we're going to have to wrap up, because we're already a couple of minutes over. So thank you very much to my panelists for sharing, and I very much look forward to seeing those USPs come through over the next 5 years as you become more tech-co-y. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you, Amy.
Terrific. Thank you all.